You took my husband's favor, so today I will bury yours.
In a small, peaceful village nestled between rolling hills and thick forest, there lived a skilled carpenter named Kofi. He was well known throughout the village for his remarkable craftsmanship. Whether it was creating sturdy chairs, intricate wooden carvings, or strong houses for the villagers, Kofi's hands worked magic on the wood. His reputation as a hard-working, humble man had earned him respect from all. But even more than his skill with wood, Kofi's heart was kind, and his love for his two wives seemed to know no bounds. Kofi's first wife, Amina, was everything a man could dream of. She was gentle, kind-hearted, and breathtakingly beautiful. Amina had a way of bringing peace wherever she went. Her smile could warm the coldest heart, and her voice was as soothing as a calm breeze. She worked tirelessly to maintain their home, tending to the garden and ensuring that Kofi was always well-fed and cared for. The villagers admired her, and many women looked up to Amina for the grace and serenity she displayed every day. She was the embodiment of everything good and pure in the world. Amina had a soft and quiet beauty that made her a beloved figure in the village. Her calm and nurturing nature had given Kofi a sense of stability and joy. The love between them was deep, built on years of shared experiences and understanding. They had no children yet, but that did not dampen their happiness. Amina loved Kofi deeply, supporting him in his work and making their home a warm sanctuary from the world's troubles. However, their peaceful life was not without its challenges. Kofi's second wife, Wukabuki, had a very different personality from Amina. While Amina was serene, Wukabuki was fiery and strong-willed. She was stubborn and always demanded attention. Wukabuki's beauty was more striking, with sharp features and an assertive presence. However, her beauty was often overshadowed by her bitterness. She had been the cause of many a village gossip, with her sharp tongue and fierce desire to outshine others. From the moment Wukabuki entered Kofi's life, things began to change. She came from a distant village and was introduced to Kofi by mutual friends. At first, Kofi had been charmed by her fiery spirit and determined nature. She was bold, direct, and unafraid to speak her mind, which drew him in. Wukabuki had many admirers, and it didn't take long before Kofi, somewhat swayed by her forceful personality, took her as a second wife. But unlike Amina, Wukabuki was not content to merely be loved. She wanted to be the most important woman in Kofi's life. She believed that Amina's gentle nature was a weakness and that only someone as strong as she could truly capture Kofi's heart. Wukabuki's constant scheming and desire to dominate began to erode the peace of their home. She tried to outdo Amina in everything, from cooking to managing the household, hoping that Kofi would notice her more. But the more Wukabuki tried to gain his attention, the more she seemed to push Kofi away. Kofi, although he cared for both wives in his own way, could not ignore the growing tension between them. Amina, ever the calm and kind-hearted one, would always give way to Wukabuki's demands, preferring to maintain peace. But inside, Amina began to feel the weight of Wukabuki's hostility. Wukabuki, on the other hand, grew increasingly resentful of Amina's quiet grace and Kofi's affection toward her. Her jealousy festered into something darker, as she became determined to prove that she was the better wife, willing to go to any lengths to claim her place at Kofi's side, and so, life in Kofi's household became a quiet battleground, one that no one could see but everyone could feel. Kofi remained unaware of the growing animosity between his two wives, but Amina's gentle heart could no longer ignore the coldness that began to brew between them. Wukabuki, consumed by her jealousy and bitterness, began to plot and plan, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. As time passed, Amina and Kofi's marriage continued to blossom, albeit with the quiet undercurrent of tension created by Wukabuki's jealousy. Yet, neither Kofi nor Amina knew what horrors Wukabuki's jealousy would soon bring into their lives. What started as a peaceful and loving home would soon be torn apart by the darkness of envy, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. The stage was now set for a series of events that would forever change their lives. The commerce of Amina, the peace that once reigned in their home, would soon be shattered, and the consequences of Wukabuki's actions would unravel in the most tragic of ways. As time passed, Amina and Kofi's life together seemed to grow even more peaceful. Amina's gentleness filled their home with a warmth that Kofi cherished deeply. She was everything he had ever wanted in a wife: calm, supportive, and kind-hearted. They spent their days working side by side, Kofi building his wooden creations and Amina caring for their small garden and household. Their bond was a deep one, built on mutual respect and a quiet, unspoken love. Then, one bright morning, the village buzzed with excitement as Amina went into labor. The news spread quickly, and the villagers gathered in anticipation, eager to see the new life that would come into the world. Amina had been praying for a child for many years. And now, it seemed that her prayers were being answered. Kofi, overjoyed, stood by her side, holding her hand and offering all his support. He was filled with a mixture of excitement and nerves, but he knew he would be there to help Amina through the birth. With each breath, Amina pushed through the pain, her face glowing with determination and love for the child she was about to bring into the world. Hours passed, and the sun began to set as the village waited outside their home. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Amina gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The sound of the child's first cries echoed through the room, and a wave of pure joy washed over Kofi. He had never felt such happiness. His heart swelled with pride as he looked down at his newborn son, his first child, a son who would carry on his name and his legacy. Amina smiled softly, exhausted but radiant, as she cradled the tiny bundle in her arms. Her eyes glistened with tears of joy, and she whispered softly to the baby, already promising to love and protect him for the rest of her life. Kofi, unable to contain his emotions, leaned down and kissed Amina on the forehead, thanking the heavens for the precious gift they had been given. For the next few weeks, life was full of new joys. Amina took to motherhood naturally, and Kofi was by her side every step of the way. The baby, whom they named Kofi Jr., was a blessing. His cries brought laughter and light into their home, and the villagers often visited to admire the little one. Amina was the epitome of a loving mother, caring, gentle, and patient as she nurtured her son. Kofi, equally proud, would often be seen walking through the village, his chest puffed out with pride as he showed off his new son to everyone he met. However, as the days went by, Wukabuki's bitterness grew. While Amina and Kofi reveled in the joy of their new family, Wukabuki seethed with jealousy. Her eyes narrowed every time she saw Amina holding the child. Her jealousy, which had festered for so long, now burned brighter than ever. She had been Kofi's second wife, yet Amina's serene beauty and natural kindness had won Kofi's heart in a way Wukabuki could never compete with. And now, with the birth of Kofi Jr., Amina had everything that Wukabuki could never have: true love, happiness, and a child to call her own. Wukabuki's heart darkened with each passing day. Her mind began to churn with thoughts of how she could reclaim Kofi's affection and attention. She was not content to merely play the role of the second wife in their home, she wanted to be first in his heart. But no matter how she tried to draw Kofi's attention, he was always by Amina's side, doting on her and their child. The bond between them was undeniable, and Wukabuki felt increasingly invisible in their happy family. As the days turned into weeks, Wukabuki's resentment grew into something far more dangerous. She could no longer bear to watch Amina and Kofi together, their love and happiness seeming to mock her every attempt to gain favor. The jealousy that had once been a quiet whisper in her heart now roared like a storm. Wukabuki began to hatch a dark plan, one that would end the happiness that Amina and Kofi shared forever, but what Wukabuki didn't realize was that her own bitterness would soon lead her down a path of no return. Her jealousy, once a mere feeling, had transformed into a poison in her heart, one that would drive her to do unspeakable things. The birth of Kofi Jr., which should have been a joyous occasion, was now the spark that ignited Wukabuki's twisted desires. Her hatred for Amina, already a smoldering flame, began to burn uncontrollably. Wukabuki was no longer the woman Kofi had married, she had become consumed by jealousy, and that jealousy would soon drive her to commit a terrible act. The days following the birth of Kofi Jr. were a whirlwind of joy and celebration. Amina's radiant smile and gentle care for her newborn son brought an air of peace to the home that had never been there before. Kofi, overjoyed by the arrival of his son, showered both Amina and the baby with all his affection. He had waited for this moment for so long, and now that it had arrived, nothing seemed more important than the happiness of his little family. But while Amina bathed in the beauty of motherhood, Wukabuki's heart grew colder. Every glance she stole at Kofi and Amina together, every laugh and loving touch between them, fanned the flames of jealousy within her. Her mind, once sharp and clear, had become clouded with resentment. She could no longer stand being the second wife, always playing second fiddle to Amina's peaceful existence. Wukabuki's jealousy twisted into something dark and malevolent. The more she watched Amina with the baby, the more she felt the sharp sting of being overlooked. She had done everything to win Kofi's heart, but his love for Amina seemed unshakable. Wukabuki was no longer satisfied with merely being the second wife. She wanted everything. She wanted Kofi's full attention, and more than anything, she wanted to destroy Amina's happiness. One evening, when the sun began to set and the shadows grew long, Wukabuki saw an opportunity. Kofi had gone out into the village to purchase some wood, and Amina had fallen asleep with the baby in her arms. The soft sounds of the night were broken only by the gentle breeze rustling through the trees and the chirping of distant crickets. It was a peaceful, quiet evening, one that would soon be shattered forever. Wukabuki had been planning this moment for weeks, watching Amina's every move and calculating the perfect time to act. She knew that Amina's trust in her was absolute, and that's what made her plan all the more sinister. She crept into the room where Amina lay sleeping, her heart pounding in her chest. The darkness of her intentions cloaked her every movement as she quietly approached the crib where Kofi Jr. lay, blissfully unaware of the danger that loomed. With one last glance at Amina, whose peaceful face was unaware of the impending horror, Wukabuki carefully lifted the baby from the crib. The child stirred slightly but remained asleep in her arms. Wukabuki's breath quickened as she stepped out of the room. Her footsteps light but purposeful. She made her way through the quiet house, her mind consumed by the twisted thoughts that had taken root in her heart. The forest outside the village was dark, its ancient trees casting long shadows under the dim light of the moon. Wukabuki walked into the forest, her steps swift and determined, the baby still in her arms. The deeper she ventured into the woods, the more the weight of her wickedness pressed upon her chest. But she pushed the guilt aside, convincing herself that this was the only way. She was doing this for herself, for her future with Kofi. Eventually, Wukabuki came upon a small clearing, hidden deep within the forest. The ground here was soft and rich with earth, the perfect place for what she was about to do. She knelt down and, using the hoe she had brought with her, began to dig a small hole in the earth. The sound of the blade scraping against the soil echoed in the stillness of the night. Her hands trembled, but she forced herself to continue, the dark cloud of jealousy pushing her forward. When the hole was deep enough, she gently laid the baby down into the earth. Her heart raced as she used the spade to cover the child's tiny body with soil, burying him in the cold, dark ground. As the last shovelful of dirt covered the baby's body, Wukabuki stood still, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The weight of what she had done began to settle on her, but she quickly pushed it away. The deed was done. Amina's child was gone, and now nothing could stand in the way of her happiness. Wukabuki stood for a moment longer in the silence of the forest, listening to the faint whispers of the trees around her. But there was no turning back now. She quickly turned and began to walk back to the village, her steps heavier with each passing moment. The guilt that had tried to rear its head was now buried beneath the surface, just like the child. She would never speak of what she had done, and in time, she hoped the memory would fade from her mind. As Wukabuki returned to the house, she found Amina still asleep, unaware that her world had just been shattered. Kofi had not yet returned from the village, and so the house was quiet. Wukabuki did her best to mask the storm of emotions inside her, putting on a calm face as she resumed her duties. But beneath the surface, she knew that everything had changed. The child was gone, and soon, Kofi would only have her to rely on. The night passed in an uneasy silence. Kofi returned from the village, carrying with him bundles of fresh wood and the hopes of a simple evening spent with his family. He expected to return to a quiet, peaceful home, where Amina would be waiting for him with a warm meal and their son in her arms. But when he entered the house, his heart sank. There was an unfamiliar stillness in the air, a palpable tension that seemed to cling to the walls. "Amina." Kofi called, his voice breaking the silence. There was no response. His eyes quickly darted to the small crib where Kofi Jr. had been sleeping just hours before, but it was empty. His heart began to race as he hurried to the other rooms. Searching for his wife and child, Amina had woken moments before Kofi, her heart heavy with a strange unease she couldn't shake. She had been nursing her son when a sudden, overwhelming fatigue swept over her. She had laid down with him beside her, lulled by the quiet rhythm of his breathing, and drifted into a light sleep. But now, as she woke, her worst nightmare began to unfold. The baby was gone, Amina. Kofi's voice echoed through the house once more, a tremor in his tone. Amina rose from the bed, a deep sense of dread creeping over her. She stumbled into the hallway and looked into the living room where Kofi stood, his face pale and filled with confusion. "My baby," Amina whispered, her voice barely audible. "My son is gone." Kofi froze, unable to process the weight of her words. He rushed to her side, pulling her into his arms as a surge of panic gripped him. "What do you mean? Where is he?" "He was just here, Amina. We were so happy." "I don't know. I don't know where he went," Amina said, her voice shaking with grief. "He was sleeping next to me, Kofi. I woke up, and he was gone." The devastation in her voice tore through Kofi like a sharp blade. He grabbed Amina's shoulders, his eyes frantic. "Stay here. I'll find him. I'll look everywhere." His words were a promise, but as he ran out of the house and into the village, he was already filled with a sense of hopelessness. The night air was thick with the kind of fear that tightens the chest and clouds the mind. The streets were empty, save for a few faint lanterns flickering in the distance. Kofi ran through the village, calling out to his neighbors, asking if anyone had seen his son. He knocked on doors, desperation written all over his face. But no one had seen anything. The villagers, confused and frightened, joined in the search, combing the fields, the paths through the forest, and the nearby hills, but the baby was nowhere to be found. The sun began to rise, casting a soft light over the village, but no answers came. Kofi's heart sank deeper with each passing hour, and Amina, back at home, could do nothing but wait. Her mind raced with fear and confusion. How could this have happened? Who would take her child? She could only imagine the horrors that awaited her son. The thought of him alone in the cold, dark woods, lost and helpless, shattered her. Her heart ached with a pain she had never known before. 2 days passed, and still there was no sign of the baby. Kofi had exhausted every possibility, but the child was gone. The search had turned up nothing, and the villagers began to whisper, a dark cloud of suspicion hanging over their heads. Amina's grief grew heavier with each passing hour, her quiet despair turning into a gnawing panic. She began to wonder if the gods had cursed her, if some unseen force had taken her child away as a punishment. But she could not bear to think of the possibility that someone in the village could be responsible for such an evil act. No, she refused to believe it. Yet, the empty crib and the silence that followed made it all too real. It was then that Amina, in the depths of her despair, turned to Kofi with a quiet plea. "Kofi, we need to seek help," she said softly, her eyes red from crying. "We need to find someone who can help us. There must be a way to understand what happened." Kofi, broken and unable to think clearly, nodded slowly. "What do you suggest?" "There is a shaman," Amina said, her voice trembling but firm. "He lives at the edge of the village. The elders say he can see things no one else can. Perhaps he can help us find the truth, Kofi." Perhaps he can tell us where our son is. Kofi, too exhausted to argue, agreed. With no other option, they made their way to the shaman's dwelling. The shaman's hut was small and tucked away in a quiet corner of the village, surrounded by tall trees that seemed to whisper with the winds of time. The air inside was thick with the scent of incense, herbs, and strange concoctions that seemed to promise mystery and power. The shaman was an old man, his face etched with deep wrinkles and eyes that gleamed with an otherworldly knowledge. His presence was both calming and unnerving, as if he were a bridge between this world and another. The shaman listened to their story with great care, his expression unchanging as he absorbed every word. Once they had finished, he closed his eyes and remained silent for a long while. Amina and Kofi stood in the dim light, their hearts heavy with anticipation, waiting for the shaman's counsel. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the shaman spoke. What has happened to your child is the work of dark forces. The one who has done this will pay a terrible price. The spirits have spoken, and they say that whoever is responsible will lose their sanity. They will be driven mad by the spirits they have angered. Amina's breath caught in her throat. She could hardly believe what she was hearing. You mean someone in our village? The shaman nodded gravely. Yes. Whoever has committed this crime will suffer madness. There is no escape from the spirit's judgment. You must wait, for they will show themselves in time. Kofi and Amina exchanged a look, both confused and terrified by the shaman's words. They returned home, unable to shake the chilling prophecy the shaman had spoken. The next days passed in a fog of fear and uncertainty. Amina clung to the hope that the spirits would lead them to the truth. Kofi, however, was haunted by the shaman's words. The thought that someone they knew could be responsible for the disappearance of their son too much to bear, as the days stretched on. The village became increasingly uneasy, and the air was thick with suspicion. Little did they know, the one responsible for the child's disappearance was already beginning to unravel in ways they could not yet understand. 2 days after Kofi and Amina had consulted the shaman, a strange stillness had settled over the village. The mystery of the missing child hung heavily in the air, with whispers and fearful glances exchanged behind closed doors. No one knew where Kofi Jr. was, and no one had any answers. The villagers were on edge, their once peaceful community now marked by suspicion and fear, but while the village waited in uncertainty, Wukabuki's world had already begun to unravel. At first, it was subtle. Wukabuki, who had always been a strong, confident woman, began to act strangely. Her once sharp and assertive personality grew erratic, as if something inside her had snapped. She would wander around her home, muttering to herself, her thoughts stumbling over each other in a confusing jumble. She no longer spoke to Kofi in the same way, her words laced with an edge of hysteria. She would laugh at inappropriate times, her eyes wide with a crazed look, as if hearing voices that no one else could hear. One morning, Wukabuki went to the village well to fetch water, as she had done countless times before. But this time, there was something off about her. She stood at the well, staring into the water for an unusually long time, her reflection seeming to warp and shift in the ripples. The villagers, who were already watching her closely, began to whisper amongst themselves. The elders, who had heard rumors of the missing child and the strange happenings around Wokabuki, exchanged worried glances. They had heard the prophecy from the shaman, the one who had predicted that the guilty would lose their sanity. It seemed that the shaman's words were now coming true. In the days that followed, Wukabuki's condition worsened. Her madness became more profound, her once sharp mind completely lost to her own guilt. She would often wander out into the woods, as if seeking something or someone. Villagers would find her standing by the edge of the forest, staring into the dark trees, speaking to the wind. One evening, Kofi found her in the forest, kneeling beside a large tree. She was crying, her face twisted in agony. "I'm sorry," she sobbed, her voice broken. "I didn't mean it. I didn't mean to hurt him. Please forgive me, child." Kofi stood frozen, watching her from a distance. His heart sank as he finally understood the truth. Wukabuki had been the one to take their child. She had buried him in the forest. And now, the consequences of her actions had come to claim her mind. Wukabuki's descent into madness was the result of her guilt, her jealousy, and her dark deeds. The spirits, it seemed, had indeed spoken, and their vengeance had come swiftly. There was no escaping the consequences of her wicked act. The madness that consumed her was both her punishment and her prison. As Wukabuki's madness grew worse, the village became an increasingly tense and fearful place. The villagers, once sympathetic to her plight, now whispered among themselves about the unnatural way in which she had been consumed by guilt and terror. They saw the shaman's prophecy unfold before their very eyes. The one who had committed the heinous act was suffering beyond measure, losing herself to the spirits she had angered. Kofi, torn between his love for Wukabuki and the grief over the loss of his child, found himself lost in a fog of confusion. He could not deny the horror of what had happened, nor could he ignore the fact that Wukabuki had been the one to take their son. Yet, seeing her in such a state, broken and lost, stirred a mix of pity and dread within him. One night, Kofi found himself standing at the edge of the forest, looking toward the place where Wukabuki had buried their child. The moon was full, casting long shadows across the ground. His heart ached as he thought of Kofi Jr., the son who would never grow up to laugh or run in the village, the boy who would never feel the warmth of his father's embrace. The pain was unbearable, and yet it was a pain that Kofi knew he would have to live with for the rest of his days. Wukabuki, now fully consumed by her madness, had stopped speaking coherently. She wandered the village in a state of confusion. Her eyes vacant, her mind a fragmented shell of its former self. Her once proud, stubborn demeanor had vanished, replaced by a pitiful version of the woman Kofi had married. She no longer cared for anything, no food, no shelter, no love. She simply existed in a world of torment, unable to escape the consequences of her actions. The villagers began to see her as a cautionary tale, a warning of what happens when envy and jealousy take root in the heart. They no longer pitied her, they feared her. The once powerful woman who had tried to break the harmony of Kofi's household was now reduced to a broken, empty soul, wandering aimlessly. Kofi knew that he could not save her. Her mind was lost to the spirits, and no amount of love or forgiveness could undo the darkness she had unleashed. But what Kofi could do, in his own way, was find a way to bring peace to his broken heart. He knew that Amina, though devastated by the loss of their son, still held onto a thread of hope that one day the truth would come to light. And that their family might be healed. Amina, though sorrowful and grief-stricken, had not turned her back on Kofi. She saw in his eyes the pain that mirrored her own, and though her love for him had been tested in the most brutal way imaginable, she knew that he was still the man she had married. She did not blame him for what had happened, though she knew that the consequences of Wukabuki's actions would forever scar their lives. The shaman's prophecy had come to pass. Wukabuki was now a shell of the woman she had been, lost in the madness brought on by the guilt of her crime. The village watched as she slowly deteriorated, her body and mind both withering away. She had become a tragic figure. The consequences of her jealousy and evil deeds now etched in every part of her existence. Kofi could not ignore the pain he felt for Amina, the woman who had always loved him, the woman who had given him everything and more. He returned to her, their hearts still heavy with the loss of their child. But even in the midst of that loss, they found strength in each other. They had survived the worst that life could throw at them, and though they would never forget the horrors that had befallen them, they knew that they had to move forward. And so, in the quiet days that followed, Kofi and Amina began to rebuild their lives. They knew the journey ahead would be long, but they faced it together. The love that they shared, though tested, was unbroken. Kofi's hands, which had once crafted beautiful furniture and homes for the village, now began to craft new beginnings for his own family. He walked with Amina by his side, their shared grief a bond that would never be broken. Wukabuki's madness continued, and soon she was no longer seen in the village. Some say she wandered deep into the forest, lost to the spirits that had tormented her mind. Others say she simply disappeared, vanishing into the shadows of the night. But no matter where she went, one thing was certain: the consequences of her evil deeds had stripped her of everything she once held dear. She had no more place in the world she had tried to destroy. As time went on, the village slowly returned to a sense of normalcy, though the story of Kofi, Amina, and Wukabuki would never be forgotten. The tale of love, betrayal, jealousy, and madness was passed down from one generation to the next, a reminder of the dangers of letting envy and darkness take root in the heart. And in the quiet moments, when the wind whispered through the trees, the villagers would remember the price that had been paid for one woman's wickedness. Kofi and Amina, though forever scarred by their loss, found peace in knowing that their love had survived the greatest test. Together, they faced the future with a strength born of grief, knowing that no matter what darkness lay ahead, they would always have each other. Please like my video, subscribe to my channel for more tales.